Welcome to Sizzle Fantasy Sports, the channel with the most sizzling hot fantasy takes and analysis, presented by your host, Gavin.
Rodgers clean pocket, throws the middle of the end zone. Devonta, touchdown, and a dagger.
How's it going, you guys? Welcome back to the SFS channel. My name is Gavin, and today we are joined with Eric to go over some of our top rookies for the 2021 NFL season and some of probably the most important dynasty players and rookies that will be coming into the league this season. So if you guys are new to the channel here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn the bell on. If you guys have been around here for a while, head down to the link that's posted in this video and go check out our Patreon account. We'll be posting exclusive member-only content on that page and having a lot of additional information for you guys. So thank you so much for all the support. Let's not waste any time. Let's get right into our top 10 rookies for next season. Okay, today we're going to be starting out with number 10 here. We're going to be going in descending order. So we're going to be starting at the end of the list and heading towards that number 1 overall spot. So the first guy I want to talk about today is Rashod Bateman, the star wide receiver for the Minnesota Gophers. Bateman, when you look at his analytical profile, I don't necessarily think he's the most amazing athlete at the wide receiver position per se on this list, but he's a very polished player and a guy I think can be a pretty good sleeper at the back end of a lot of first rounds in dynasty rookie drafts. And I think he's a guy that, like Justin Jefferson last season, kind of slipped down the draft board. I think he's going to return a lot of value for teams.
Yeah, he's one of those receivers who prioritizes route running opposed to, he doesn't have the intangibles as much as some other players like Devonta Smith, but he's number 10 on this board because his route running is good and we think he's going to translate well to the NFL. So he's a guy to watch out for in fantasy football dynasty drafts.
Yeah, Eric hit on the head. He is very polished, and that route running I think will help him translate very well. Also, his hands really impressed me when I watched this guy's tape. I think he catches just about everything that comes his way. Some of his contested grabs were very impressive, and I'm not really sure how he even managed to come down with the football. So, especially, Minnesota's not known for quarterback play. He got done there. A lot of people diving into the stats are a little bit worried about his lack of production per se this season, but I think a lot of people forget about the reduced schedule this year. A lot of things are different with COVID, so there's certainly not the same elements in play that there are in a normal season. So I think we have to give all these guys some slack and just be aware that stats might not be the most telling thing in college football as to what translates into the NFL. And in that sense, I think skill is what really carries through. And I think Rashod Bateman has some excellent NFL-ready skills. So moving into our number 9 spot here, we've got Justin Fields of the Ohio State Buckeyes. And a lot of people are probably wondering, why is Justin Fields so low on this list for the guy who I would say the general consensus has as their number 2 quarterback? That's not the case for us here at SFS. We see some flaws in Justin Fields' game. We think he is highly, highly talented and has a great prospect profile. This guy, he has the potential to be a special talent. I think he has a lot of skills that could translate, but I think really what lacks for Fields right now is the maturity, the poise, and just the overall development. I'd love to see him go somewhere with a strong offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, because I think he does need a little bit more maturation and development before he is NFL ready to be a star.
I think he would have the most success if he sat behind a seasoned quarterback. I don't think he's going to be drafted that way.
No,
he's going to start right away wherever he goes, be it the Jets, possibly the Dolphins.
I'd be surprised. I could definitely see him going to Detroit, though. I could see there will be a team likely that trades up for Fields, I think, and selects him early in the draft.
And if Stafford was staying with the Lions, it would make a lot more sense. Clearly, Stafford's not going to stay, and that's why they would target Fields in the first place. So he would start right away. He kind of looks down receivers, and he just throws it straight to the first read. Something that he can learn, he can figure out. He's got the intangibles of a great quarterback, and a lot of them do. Basically, every quarterback in the first round that's going to be chosen has great athleticism.
Yes.
But we're thinking about the translation to the NFL, and we don't think that he is going to be as good in the NFL, at least right away, as some of the other quarterbacks on the board.
Exactly. I think you said it great. He stares down wide receivers. He is often a one-read and go type player. A lot of the time, Chris Olave at OSU was the guy that he was looking at. In particular, the one game that really raised a lot of red flags for me was against Indiana. He had 3 picks in that game. He hadn't had a turnover all season up until that point, and all of them were bad interceptions. He was either under heavy duress and just threw it up in the air. I remember he was wrapped up and had guys all over him, and he literally didn't have an open receiver, and he just chucked the ball literally straight up into the sky. And obviously, it was a turnover, a terrible play. And then his other route, he stared down a receiver on a post route, threw the ball behind him, picked off by the safety. And another one was a bad throw and contested coverage. So Justin Fields, I think if we're being realistic, I think you could hope for a Dak Prescott type turnout out of him. I think he's a better athlete than Prescott, a better pure runner, and I think that gives him a lot of fantasy value per se. And I think that even as a runner, he kind of reminds me of Deshaun Watson a little bit. But in terms of throwing the ball, his accuracy and his precision, he needs to develop those skills more. And I think if he can find a way to do that, he's going to have great success in the league. But I think until we see him do that, there are major question marks around Justin Fields.
Here at number 8, we've got Jalen Waddle. He's one of the great receivers in the draft, at least in college. We love his speed, of course. And there's some other receivers in this class who've got that speed, but he combines that speed with route running. That's the big thing. Again, we want to see receivers in every position that translate to the NFL. Route running is one of the biggest things. We saw Justin Jefferson become a great wide receiver right away. He's got the route running in his back pocket. That is what separates good receivers and great receivers in the NFL. A corner is going to cover a guy that's fast in most situations, besides on maybe a fly route. If they're running just a straight seam route, you can beat a corner in some situations. But when you're playing a full game of football, you need to be able to have some different route combinations you can run, and Jalen Waddle can do that. And he combines that with his speed. So he's number 8 here. A little higher than Bateman just because of his athleticism.
Yes, more athletic than Bateman for sure.
Yeah, I think he's definitely someone that should be considered. He's going to go to a team that needs a receiver, somewhat the Dolphins, someone like the Jets, and he would be a good piece there. He's definitely going to be fantasy relevant right away is what I see happening. So Jalen Waddle definitely deserves to be in the top 10.
Yeah, we've got him as our wide receiver 3 for right now. When I look at Jalen Waddle, he's extremely talented. He's very, very explosive, and he has great speed. I think I've seen him do some really great things on deep balls, and I've also seen him do some very great things after the catch. When I looked at him, the first thing that kind of jumped out to me was I saw a lot of DJ Moore in him. I think Jalen Waddle being a smaller guy, 5'10", 183, I don't think that he's going to be able to have elite red zone production in his career. I think the touchdowns in terms of fantasy might hold him back a little bit. And just like DJ Moore, that's what we've been seeing as the trend in his career. He's over 1,000 yards consistently. He's a very polished receiver and a very good NFL wide receiver, but he doesn't necessarily put up monster fantasy numbers because he's not hitting those end zone numbers. So while I think Jalen Waddle can certainly be a very productive guy in terms of his yardage output, I think we have to limit our expectations for his touchdown production. And I think that's a big part of fantasy football. So I expect Waddle to have success, be an early pick in the first round, but I don't necessarily think that he's going to be necessarily a top-end wide receiver 1 during his career. At number 7, I think this is one of, if not both of our favorite kind of, not necessarily a sleeper pick, but a very good value pick in rookie startup drafts, or even just your yearly rookie draft. Javonte Williams. When I watched his tape, I was blown away with what this guy could do. He's very versatile. He caught the football effectively. And what I really noticed that popped off the screen was when he hit the edge, he was able to knock out that home run ball a lot. And he was able to show explosion. He's clearly above the level of competition he's playing with at North Carolina. He was very, very productive. And we saw a great jump from his production in 2019 to the 2020 season, 2020. Well, yeah, it would be the 2019 to the 2020 season. And I think that whoever ends up with Javonte Williams is going to have a guy who can potentially be their workhorse running back. It's going to be really dependent for him on whether or not he goes into a situation where he can be a day one starter. I think that's the biggest question mark for running backs, especially in fantasy this day and age with so many committees and less situations where you have one guy taking all the carries. So Javonte Williams, I love him. I know you do too. Tell us what you think about him.
Like you said, he's not a household name like a guy like Etienne or Najee Harris, but he's got the intangibles. He's the right size for a running back. He's got strength. We've seen him truck. Yes. We can see him run outside of the tackles and inside. He's a great goal line back for someone who is able to stretch the field as much as he can. Catching is a big thing for me, especially in fantasy football. He's one of my favorite running backs in the draft, and he could be almost, like you said, a steal, almost a sleeper, because I don't think he's on everyone's radar as much as Najee or Etienne.
Yeah, like obviously this guy is going to go in rookie drafts, but I think that the value that's being placed on him, he's going to go towards the back end of the first round, the second half of the first round at the very least. And I think that this guy, he has the skills that translate so good. We watch his hands. He is excellent at not only catching the football, but doing so in stride and not losing a beat with his, whatever path he's on.
Something that NFL running backs really struggle with. They try to run before they catch, and they get a little caught off guard by someone about to tackle them. He looked pretty good when he was catching.
Yes, very, very comfortable catching the football. That is a huge part of fantasy, like Eric said. A reception in fantasy football is actually worth 2 times as many points on average as a rushing attempt. So obviously, if you are a running back and can handle that receiving load, you're going to be a very productive player. And then last note on Javonte Williams here, he would just blow guys over in the open field. He puts his shoulder down and runs through contact. He's elusive as well. I mean, this guy does everything that I like to see in a fantasy running back. And if he goes to the right spot, I think he is going to be a force to be reckoned with. Why don't you talk about Zach Wilson here at number 6?
Yeah, Zach Wilson's a guy, I've been kind of saying he reminds me of Josh Allen. Josh Allen clearly he progressed. He started off making some bonehead decisions, and still he makes some decisions that he shouldn't make, throwing it up while he's getting sacked. But anyway, I think clearly Zach Wilson doesn't have the arm that Josh Allen has. I don't think anyone has his arm. But Zach Wilson can get the ball to his receivers, and those receivers he's throwing to are not that great. And that was the same case with Josh Allen. He played at Wyoming, and his competition wasn't great, but also the guys he was working with weren't amazing. So I think BYU quarterback, he is very consistent. His reads are nice. He's not looking down one receiver. That's why I would have him a little higher than Fields. Again, Fields has more of the intangibles, but Wilson throws dots. I mean, he throws tight spirals, and he throws them in the right spot. He's not underthrowing when he's throwing hard. So I really liked how he looked in the film we've watched, and I think he's a dang good quarterback.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. In particular, the thing that you talked about a little bit that puts Zach Wilson ahead of Justin Fields for me is that this guy's an improviser. He keeps his eyes upfield when he's scrambling around the pocket. He's looking to make the play down the field. Justin Fields can 100% break a sack. He can get out of the pocket and he can move probably better than Zach Wilson. But I think what Justin Fields falls back and relies on is that he can tuck the football and run. And I think he does that a little bit more than he should when he probably could hit a wide open receiver down the field. And then I think Zach Wilson, his deep ball is so pretty. His spiral is so clean, and he had receivers that, they were good enough to go up and make the catch, but on film he doesn't have very many plays when he's hitting a wide open guy with 5+ yards of cushion. Like, they are dropping dimes right in the bucket. Zach Wilson is putting the ball right where it needs to be, and he has thoroughly impressed me. So the level of competition doesn't concern me. What I've seen from him from a talent perspective and his skills, I'm really impressed, and I think he's going to translate quite well if he goes to the right spot.
I think that if he's starting right away, he would be able to do a pretty nice job. It would be even nicer if he did sit behind someone right away.
Of course,
just to see. And yeah, it's always nice to see that. But opposed to Fields, he could start right away. I don't think Fields should. I think Zach Wilson would be able to, and he would be pretty comfortable on a team, especially with some nice receivers that he can throw to, because he could run a nice offense.
Yes. All right, then at number 5 here, we have got the Heisman Trophy winner, Javonte Smith. I think and a lot of people probably with this pick here too are going to say we're a bit low on him, but I will say the one overlying thing that troubles me about Devonta Smith, I know how good of a route runner he is. He's very, very fast, but I can't get past his size. I think that just that alone is not big enough of a knock to completely throw him off our rankings here, obviously, but it is something to be considered. We've seen smaller receivers struggle to beat press coverage. When the NFL game gets physical and these are grown men guarding you, it gets a lot tougher to find space and to get open. So Devonta Smith is going to have to be tough, and he's probably going to have to put on some weight. He actually opted not to be weighed in at his Alabama's Pro Day, I believe. So I think that might show us that he's actually not the 174, 175 pounds that he claims to be, but hopefully he can bulk up a little bit in the offseason here. I think that he's a very great athlete. Obviously, he was a menace and could not be stopped in the college football playoff. So there's a lot of things to like, and that can translate very, very well here. But I think that weight is a little bit of a concern for me.
I think what you see with him is he's getting behind their secondary every time.
Yes.
He's wide open, and his hands are very good. He can moss. He does it all. He really does. But when you think about that size, I know it's kind of like the high school coach, the college coach thinking, oh, this guy's got the size. Oh, I want him. Oh, this guy's small. He's not as valuable. He's smaller. Of course, players can get bigger. That's a thing you can do. But if he is staying at that same size, those press corners and those defensive schemes are not going to allow him to get behind even with his speed. There's players faster than him. They've seen players that are faster than him.
Exactly.
It's how it is. And when he's gonna get stuffed by, a big corner that's got that aggressive edge, he's going to struggle, I think, if he doesn't put on the weight. But again, his route running is very good, so he can avoid that. You see Davante Adams, he has size, clearly.
Yeah,
he doesn't
6'2".
even touch the corner when he's doing a route, when he's doing his get-off. If Devonta Smith can put that all together, his size won't be as big of a deal. But I do think he should put on at least 10 pounds,
at least.
and he'll be in better shape in the NFL.
I think you hit everything on the head there with what you talked about. And when I've been talking to a lot of people about Devonta Smith, obviously, because I think he's a polarizing player and a guy obviously generating lots of conversation. And the people I've talked to have compared him to DeAndre Hopkins and Davante Adams. And when I looked up the size and measurables, they were around 210 to 215, 40 pounds heavier than Devonta Smith.
Yep.
So all great route runners, all tall and slender players. Those guys aren't all winning with physicality. Those guys are winning with route running and pure skill. But I think that Devonta Smith, it's still important that he does add that weight. I think he can be a great player, but like you talked about, those corners, they can run. The top the top end guys can do it all. I just think about Jalen Ramsey getting in press coverage on him, and when he really shocks him and punches him in the chest, I think Devonta Smith might not react the best to that. So I'm not knocking his toughness. Obviously, if you're playing for Coach Saban at Alabama, you've got that in the bag. But I think that there is just some obstacles and some questions that he honestly needs to answer before he can move up to our wide receiver 1. But obviously, wide receiver 2 here is still a very good spot for him. At number 4, we've got Travis Etienne, the running back for the Clemson Tigers. And honestly, I was surprised that Travis Etienne did not come out last season. I opted to stay one more year with that team. Obviously played for Trevor Lawrence. And I really like what I've seen from Etienne. Super dynamic, very versatile. He does a great job as a receiver. Just like the rest of the running backs, it's really going to be dependent on where he ends up landing in the draft. His situation is going to determine his outcome. And honestly, that's the common theme for almost all these players, but I think it's especially true for running backs. I mean, I think in fantasy football, we see situation actually be more important than the actual pure talent. Obviously, everyone in the NFL has talent. They can all do something well. That's why they're in the league. But I think about guys like Jamison Crowder for the Jets. He's not a top 20 talented receiver in the NFL.
No.
But he puts up solid starting wide receiver numbers in fantasy because he is the best option on that team to get the football. So, obviously, a little bit off track here talking about a running back coming out of the draft. But I think that when you look at some guys' talent, there's a lot of people who are underachieving in the stats category, which is what fantasy football is. So, Travis Etienne, I think he is going to be he is a great prospect, and I think he has great potential. It's just, for me, it's up to where he lands.
Yeah, unfortunately, running back is such a rotation position. It's always cycling new guys, new contracts. They pick up a new one. They don't want to pay a certain running back as much as they would be worth. You see guys like Aaron Jones leaving. The Packers most likely. They're probably not going to pay him, so he might go to a team that needs a running back. And what does that do to Travis Etienne? I mean, he might be competing for a spot. It's just tough with the running backs, but I think he's a very good talent, and he should be a legit fantasy running back for years to come.
Yeah, I would love to see Etienne go somewhere where he can be the number one and get a full workload every game. And number 3, we've got our RB1 for this rookie class. It's Najee Harris of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Najee Harris, for a guy of his size, boy, does he catch the football well, and that is something I did not expect to see from him. He's a powerhouse. I mean, obviously, I think some people have drawn comparisons to Derrick Henry because they are both monster power backs, but I think Najee is far and away the better receiving back. He's a lot more dynamic.
More dynamic, yep.
And I think he can do some big things in the league.
He can run outside like Derrick Henry does, which is something you don't expect from a bigger guy.
Right.
But he can do it. And when he gets out there, he's going to truck a corner and a safety. And you know, those smaller linebackers in college football. I think he'll do well in the NFL. I think he's the most legit prospect for running back just in general. NFL transition. He's got the size clearly. Again, catching is a big thing. Depends on the team. It really does. Is he going to go to a team that passes to the running back? Are they going to use him? Is it going to become a Leonard Fournette situation? It's hard to say, but Najee Harris is one of the guys that is definitely deserving of top 5 in any dynasty draft. He should be picked.
Yeah, I think regardless of format, standard PPR, half PPR, tight end premium, Najee Harris is, I'd argue, probably a top 3 pick. We've got him at number 3 here. I think that he is the most NFL-ready running back in this class. He can go somewhere from day one, be the starter, and hit the ground running. I would love to see him go to a power run team. I think there might be an RB opening in Pittsburgh. Obviously, New York is really struggling in the talent department. He can go somewhere and be the tone setter. This guy can be the leader for an offense, and he can probably really help out a veteran quarterback in establishing a run game, or a rookie quarterback or a younger guy and having a run game to rely on. So I'd love to see Najee Harris go somewhere and be a day one starter because I think he can put up really, really solid numbers. It's just going to be like the rest of these guys, a matter of where he lands. I think mid to late first round, maybe early second. I'm not so sure how early we're going to see running backs picked in this year's draft, but I think there is the potential that Najee Harris is the first running back taken in the actual NFL draft. At number 2 here, we've got Jamar Chase of the LSU Tigers. And obviously Jamar Chase, big controversy, or not necessarily controversy, but he did sit out this year. He opted out of the 2020 season, so we haven't actually seen him play a game of football since the national championship game. Obviously, Joe Burrow was his quarterback in his sophomore season there, and they ended up winning it all. But Jamar Chase was just a freak of nature that year. I think the one thing for me that puts Jamar Chase above Devonta Smith is I look at Jamar Chase and I just see a number 1 wide receiver, a guy who walks in day one and is that alpha who demands the highest target share on his football team. This guy won the Biletnikoff in his sophomore season, which is the nation's best wide receiver. I mean, Devonta Smith was playing that year. He wasn't on the top, the finalist ballot for
Justin
that.
Jefferson was on his team too, along with Terrace Marshall.
So he had so many people to compete for targets with. I mean, Thaddeus Moss was racking.
Thaddeus Moss got a lot of catches.
He did. And Jamar Chase, through it all, was exceptional. He doesn't have the speed, per se, that your Devonta Smith has, or Jalen Waddle even, but his route running is pristine. This guy, he's a physical beast, and some of the things I've seen him do athletically are so impressive to me. And I think that this guy walks in and is just a stud from day one.
Yeah, one of the knocks that I've heard about is just that he doesn't really run block, which is something you can fix. That's one of the only knocks you can really put on him besides his speed. Because
and for fantasy, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, but a team, clearly they're going to still consider, maybe this guy isn't going to put the work in, or maybe he's going to be a diva. But I think he'll be fine in the NFL as long as he is being respected as one of those top receivers on the team, which I believe he will be right out of the draft. Yeah. He should be a number one, if not, close number two wide receiver for whichever team he goes to. His route running is pristine. We see a lot of Justin Jefferson out of him, a little slower, but he's got that big guy mentality.
Yes.
And he's going to be really good.
Yeah, I seriously, if I'm the Dolphins, if I'm the Jets, if I'm Philly even, I'm seriously considering taking this guy at the top of the draft. Eagles obviously picked Jalen Reagor with their first-round pick last year. I'm not so sure they don't trade up and or at least try to make it a run at Jamar Chase. I think Reagor's got some value in the NFL, but I think that he would be even better if you could give him some lighter coverage with Jamar Chase as your one. So this guy, he's going to go early in the draft. He 100% should and deserves that type of respect because there's a chance that we see some transcendent things out of this player, and I think Jamar Chase is obviously our rankings here. We have him at number 2. I think he's going to be one of the most successful career-long fantasy football players in this draft. And then our number 1 player, we've got Trevor Lawrence of the
good old Sunshine
Clemson Tigers. Sunshine, remember the Titans?
Yeah, something like
that. If you guys don't understand that, go check out Remember the Titans. Trevor Lawrence, obviously the beautiful golden
locks of love. The golden locks of love. Just look at this guy.
Trevor Lawrence, he's the most NFL-ready quarterback in this draft. He's going to go number 1 overall to Jacksonville. They're foolish if they pass on him. He should be going number 1 overall in your guys' dynasty leagues too, for the most part. If you guys have any question marks in your quarterback position for your fantasy rosters, you guys need to go out and pick up Trevor Lawrence. If you're just playing for redraft purposes, Trevor Lawrence probably should be drafted in that format as well.
He could almost turn out like a Herbert. He could be a steal.
100%.
I think he'll be clearly. He'll be taken higher than Herbert this year just because he was a number 1 overall pick, and he's going to start right away for the Jags.
Right. Again, we didn't think we were going to see Herbert.
Yeah, so we didn't expect that, but he could still be one of those young quarterbacks that you take later in the draft, and they could end up being one of the top QBs in fantasy. So he's definitely someone to watch out for in regular leagues as well.
Yeah, he could finish as a top 12 quarterback. Basically numbers 10 through 2 on this list. We can't give you a definitive answer of where they're going to end up at. We're 99.99% sure Trevor Lawrence is going to be a Jacksonville Jaguar. And when you look at that team offensively, obviously just bringing in Urban Meyer to be the new head coach. They've got DJ Chark, Laviska Shenault. They've got James Robinson in the backfield, and a pretty decent, I would say average at worst, offensive line. They've got a solid center. They've got some nice guards. I think they could upgrade, maybe give him some more protection from his tackles, but I think Trevor Lawrence is going into a pretty good situation to start out in, and he's got some weapons, so he can certainly produce with the guys he's got already right off the bat. And I think the talent alone will guide Trevor Lawrence to success in the NFL.
I don't think he's going to win games because their defense is just so bad, but
it's very young.
It will be a Joe Burrow situation. If Joe Burrow had been in the whole season, the Bengals would have still had a losing season, but they would have been a trap team because Joe Burrow kept them in games. I think it's going to be the same situation with our sunshine right here.
Yeah. I definitely think Trevor Lawrence, when we watch this tape, obviously he's been a starter since his freshman year. True freshman, he was sensational, national champion. Trevor Lawrence has been basically the talk of all college football experts and NFL draft analysts for years waiting for Trevor Lawrence to come out. Finally, he is coming to the NFL. It's just effortless watching him throw the football. His reads, it just seems like he sees the field so well. I don't really have any main issue with him. I mean, obviously, his team wasn't quite good enough to get the job done in the national championship this year, but he was fighting. He's been putting up really good numbers all year long, and is a guy I think is going to translate very well.
Yeah, I agree. And what's funny is they put him on these funny option plays.
Yeah.
And they have him try to run, but in the NFL, that's not going to work, and I don't see any teams doing that with him, especially because he's a quarterback. He can run, but he's not a runner. They shouldn't use him like Lamar Jackson.
He's obviously an elite prospect. He's got all the measurables. He's massive. He's like 6'6" or 6'5".
He's huge.
And he can run, but I do not like you said, the option plays were just silly to me. Read option with Trevor Lawrence is not what he's going to be good at in the NFL. Obviously, he can scramble and pick up a first down if you need him to, but this guy's value is with his arm. He's not Lamar Jackson. Like, we don't need to see him run QB power in the NFL. No. So, but yeah, that's Trevor Lawrence in our top 10 rookies for the 2021 season. Thank you guys so much for tuning into today's video, and make sure, as always, to subscribe to the channel and turn the bell on if you guys haven't already. And then one more quick note, if you guys haven't checked out our Patreon, go do so and get yourself some exclusive content.